Have you ever written words? Have you ever written words to try to convince someone of something? Have you ever tried to condense an entire paragraph's worth of information down into just one 10-word sentence? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you may just be a prime candidate to enter 10 Words of Wisdom, the internet's largest game show. One of the most basic challenges that meets the average human on a day-to-day basis is communication, conveying ideas, getting what's in your head into someone else's head using nothing but vibrations of air passing through the gap between you. This game, TWOW as it's been abbreviated, is the consummate form of that basic challenge, stretching it to its most extreme limits and testing the raw wits of all who play it. The current season of this game started with over 16,000 competitors, and somehow I'm currently in 6th place. Let me explain how I got here. 10 Words of Wisdom is a simple game show. In its current season, amusingly titled 11 Words of Wisdom, everyone starts with 3 lives, and once you reach 0 lives, you're out of the game permanently. Each round, all the players receive the prompt, which will be a creativity-inducing question of some sort, like, why did the chicken really cross the road? And they have to respond to this prompt in exactly 11 words. Your goal is to be as clever, funny, interesting, or creative as possible to make your response stand out from the rest. After the responding period is over, everyone's responses are collected and put into a voting video, where voters are presented with screens of 11 random responses to rank 1st through 11th. After the voting period closes, the thousands of votes are tallied up, and scores are calculated based on how many people put you into each slot. A first place vote is worth 100%, second place is worth 90%, and so on, down to 11th place being worth 0%. Your final raw score is the average of all of your votes. And after raw scores are calculated, they're all ranked and put on a leaderboard. And if you place in the bottom 49% of that leaderboard, you lose one of your lives. But it's not all doom and gloom. If you place in the top 5%, you gain a life. And if you're in the middle 46%, nothing happens. This pattern continues on until only one player is remaining. As of the time of writing this, 16,201 people have lost all their lives and died in EWOW, leaving only the final 406. You may ask, how do you get people to vote you up in EWOW? Well, that is the ultimate question of the game, but in general, your goal is to be as clever yet comprehensible as possible. Whatever it takes to get people to say, hey, I like that response more than the other 10 responses on this screen. For an example of a good response, a few rounds ago the prompt was, choose a word, then write an acronym describing the opposite of that word. And one of the top responses was an acronym for sympathetic, reading, so, your mom passed? Ah, that's hilarious. Everyone terrorize Irene's coffin. And while that's one of the more out there examples, in general, that's what you want to do. You want to write something creative and unique that the voters have never seen before. That's how you win at EWOW. Let's quickly walk through how I got into this crazy competition in the first place. As mentioned earlier, EWOW is the 2nd season of the show, TWOW. I first became interested in TWOW when I saw the tail end of the first season, an entirely merit-based game show, with no social components or ability to get voted off. It sounded like exactly the kind of thing my introverted tookus would be interested in, since I'm not exactly the most socially adept guy. But at the time, the first season was stuck in hiatus development hell, where they were all the way down to the final 3, but it had been years since the last episode, so I didn't have much hope that I'd ever get to play in the supposed 2nd season the host had occasionally mentioned. I joined the official TWOW Discord just in case, so I would get pinged about it if it ever happened, and then promptly forgot about it for the next few years. And then one day, out of the blue, EWOW is open for sign-ups! Finally, the glorious moment had arrived. I had rewatched the entire first season at least 5 times by that point, and fantasized for years about how I'd respond to some of those prompts. And finally, I had the chance to prove my merit. I signed up immediately. As you might expect, I was something of a dark horse in the race. For context, I've practiced a little bit by playing in 2 miniaturized versions of this competition before, what people call mini-TWOWs, which were TWOW Central Championships 1 and 2. But beyond that, I've never played in any other mini TWOWs before, and a bunch of the other people on the leaderboard have been collecting mini TWOW podium placements like Pokemon cards for the better part of a decade. It's insane. I didn't think I had much of a chance going in, but I wanted to at least give it my best shot. Let me tell you how it went. The first prompt was relatively simple. What did 10 say when he was upgraded to 11? It was the very first prompt, so I knew I had to do something flashy and not subtle at all if I wanted to catch the key-jingling attention of whatever 5 voters I ended up rolling. So I decided to lay heavy on the wordplay. 10's unshaven, even sloven. 11's driven, uneven heaven. Proven 77 divided by 7. I wasn't particularly proud of it, but I figured making every single word end with ven except for the 2 numbers would be enough jingling keys to get through. And it would have been, if not for a rendering bug. Nightmare scenario. We were all told at the beginning of the game that our responses could only use ASCII characters, and I made sure to convert all of my apostrophes from the default curly apostrophes Google Docs does into the ASCII-approved straight apostrophes and everything. And I made sure to check and see if the division symbol was in ASCII, and it was! I thought I was all good! But apparently, the division symbol is in some broader version of ASCII and not in the base 256 because it rendered in the voting video as this ugly question mark. I was absolutely devastated when I saw it and worried I would start the game by losing a life because of it. My only hope was that the rest of the response would be interesting enough to make up for that mistake. And it was! I ended up placing 548th, which landed higher than 96.71% of the competition, barely squeaking into the top 5% and giving me my first prize, putting me at 4 lives. I was elated and was super excited for the next round, hoping to continue my perfect game. And then the second prompt sucked. 6 years ago, we feasted on Tide Pods. Which pods are we feasting on now? I mean, what do you even do with this? This round was certainly a litmus test because your answer essentially had to include a pod of some sort, and there are only like 10 well-known types of pods in English. And unfortunately, there were more than 10 contestants left, so there was going to be a lot of overlap. I gritted my teeth and submitted what I figured would be one of the least common pods, cephalopods. Squid calamari. Squids live in the high tide, and they're cephalopods. You get it? 'Cause Tide Pods? I thought that was good enough. And while it didn't end up prizing, it did get a solid 87.73%, letting me survive another round. Our first EWOW friends will be eliminated this round. What does the EWOW afterlife look like? I didn't expect much from this round, honestly. The prompt was good, pretty open-ended, but I was still getting a feel for things, and wasn't bold enough to go for anything too crazy yet. I just made 2 pretty safe puns, and then had a little bit of time left over and decided to tie it all up with some cute alliteration. Decent package. I figured I at least wasn't losing a life, but boy did I not expect what became of that response.
IRDM's response was my favorite since it featured 2 clusters of alliteration, and bookshelves and purgatory are delightfully satisfying afterlife puns.
7th place out of 8,062 people. Holy crap, I was losing my mind when this happened. And to have the host specifically call it out as his favorite of the round, I was on cloud 9. Up to 5 lives, and now on to round 4. This one was pretty unremarkable, at least in terms of my performance. Choose a word, then write an acronym describing the opposite of that word. I didn't end up committing much time to this one, going for a simple gamer joke. I picked video gaming, standing for very intense dudes exhibiting outstandingly great athleticism. Muscularity is nearly guaranteed. And it did okay, top 15%, didn't prize or anything, but this is where my EWOW journey takes a bit of a dark turn. Few things spawn darkness in the heart as fiercely as the knowledge of squandered potential. It is at this point in the story that I must reveal to you I was a little bit of a villain. I wouldn't quite call myself evil, but I have been known to eschew petty social conventions in order to attain victory. and this has not exactly won the favor of my peers. You see, at the start of the competition, I saw the writing on the walls about how the first few rounds would go. EWOW is powered by a system of voting. The idea is that if enough people vote, the wisdom of the commons will shift everything toward its natural rank. But this first round had 16,607 competitors. That's a lot of frickin' responses. And I figured there was no way all 16,000 of those people would care enough about the competition to vote on it, since the barrier to entry was virtually non-existent. So the early rounds were gonna have really low VPR, which is votes per response. And you know what happens when you get low VPR? You get low accuracy. If only 2 people vote on your response, the odds that everyone who voted on your response is a psycho or a 4-year-old go up drastically. Gibberish can win a round. Art dies. It's a complete madhouse. And you know, my prediction? It was completely correct. Round 1, the winner of the entire thing, placing higher than anyone else except for the 2 guys he tied with, 1 vote. A single person voted on this guy's response, happened to vote him first, and so he got a raw score of 100%. Same on the other end, 7 people lost a life because they received only a single vote and it happened to thumb them the wrong direction. One of the best TWOWers I've ever met, not a donut, got eliminated in 6 rounds because of this crap. And as a rational individual, I didn't want to get randomly assassinated by the cruel hand of fate before I'd been given my fair shot at the game. So I performed my villainous act. I used 2 alt votes, exactly 2, to give myself a safeguard through the crap show of the first few rounds, in case I happened to get only 1 or 2 votes and they were randomly really bad. My intention the entire time was to only use them for the early, low VPR rounds, because as you can see in the most recent rounds, with vote counts hovering around 30 to 50, A, VPR is high enough to provide accurate results, and B, 2 votes isn't gonna do diddly squat anyway. That's not gonna throw off the average. But the EWOW team didn't see it that way. And I can't really blame them. In a platonically ideal world, Xylophone the BFDI fanboy and Cartoons Forever Maximum 2023 should be given an exactly equal, fair shot at the title. It was worth the risk to me. And looking at what happened to Not a Donut, I really can't say I regret it. Even though after 3 rounds the EWOW team detected my cheated votes and removed 4 out of 5 of my lives, I lived to see another day. And that's more than can be said about Mad or Anne or Tanya, all these talented writers who were eliminated early because of the problem I chose to avoid. But even though I didn't regret it, since both options sucked, I was still super bummed to get knocked down to 1 life. I suppose I didn't anticipate getting caught, so seeing all my progress erased in the blink of an eye was very discouraging. So discouraging, in fact, that I had basically given up. I was now on equal footing with Mr. Oof 2020 and Mamuka the Nugget Master, disgraced at the bottom of the leaderboard, only a single life to my name and no second chances left. The 5th prompt was, you're sent back to the year 5000 BC. Convince the people there that you're a god. And I didn't really have any ideas. I procrastinated and procrastinated all the way up until the deadline when I had like 10 minutes left staring at a blank piece of notebook paper. I had basically given up, since I figured I had no chance at surviving much longer anyway with only 1 life to my name. In those last couple of minutes, I threw together a half-baked idea I didn't really like and submitted it, just to go down fighting rather than give up in DNP. Having rubbed balloons before time traveling, say, feel my godly static electricity. I figured it was far too silly and low effort to survive, but there was no more time to think, so I submitted it, closed the form, and didn't think about EWOW again until the next episode came out, because as far as I was concerned, I was already eliminated. When the notification finally came up, I begrudgingly checked the results to see what my final placement would be. 3rd place. 3rd place. Out of 4,000 people. I cannot tell you how hard I laughed and laughed and laughed when I saw this. It was unbelievable. I still can't believe it sometimes. The ultimate redemption from my past transgressions. To get my highest placement ever, by a mile, on the first round after losing all my lives. And this was completely legitimate. I didn't use any extra votes or anything. It was just a natural 3rd place. I think I must have sat there in shock for at least 5 minutes. That was the moment I knew I had to win EWOW. The 6th round wasn't particularly notable in any way. I really liked the prompt, come up with a false reason for a true fact, but didn't end up performing notably well. I was sort of strapped for time that week, so I just went for a pun. Fire burns things because it loves makeovers. It makes everyone hotter. 597, 78.45%. Not terrible, but not impressive. The 7th round, however. The 7th round gave me a huge confidence boost. The prompt was, give an example of an object and what its presidential campaign slogan would be. And this was right up my alley. This round actually had one of the shortest amounts of time I've ever spent working on a response in this whole competition. And the only one where procrastination wasn't the reason it was so short. I finished it a day early after thinking about it for like 20 minutes tops. Keyboard promises to restrict billionaires. Reboot our country. Control all elite. And as soon as I'd written it, I knew that was going to be my response for the round. It's the most confident I've ever been about a response, and it ended up showing. Now, prior to this point, nobody in EWOW had ever cracked the podium twice. It had been discussed a bunch in the Discord how all the very highest spots were always taken by different people due to the inherent noise in the voter data and response quality inconsistency, among other things. But this round, bam. My 2nd appearance on the podium. 2nd place. And really, this should have been 1st place. I just got a little unlucky with VPR. I did some back calculating, and I actually got as many 1st place votes as Morality got total votes, which is just absolutely bonkers. I haven't tried to calculate any advanced statistics for it, but I think it may be one of the most round-dominant responses in the entire competition. I don't know, but I'm really freaking happy with it. Round 8 was another technical. The prompt was, technology has turned against humanity. How do you defend yourself against our digital and mechanical overlords to be? And you weren't allowed to use the letters O, I, or L, or the numbers 1 and 0, because binary. It was the most diabolical technical I've ever had, and it showed in my performance. I put up, subdue an angry TV, adjust her tuners, nature reruns, ease tempers. Which I thought was pretty good, because the implication is that an angry television has come to life and you can calm it down by changing its channel to a peaceful nature documentary. I thought that was funny, but the technical was absolutely atrocious, and I couldn't find a way to phrase the idea in a way that was obviously clear about what was happening. I don't think the average voter even knows what a TV tuner is. So that was a flop. 478th place, 67.73% normalized rank. Round 9 I did pretty good in. It was, the Zodiac animals have decided to add a 13th animal. Which one won the competition, and how? And I went for a relatively simple pun response. B won the animals poker tournament by secretly having a queen. It did as good as I could have hoped for, 21st place and 98.17% NR. And it actually brought me up to 4 lives, which makes me one of the only 2 contestants in the entirety of the competition, all 16,000, to go down to just 1 life and somehow scratch and claw my way back up to 4. The other person to do it is this guy Pengu. He's dead now. And actually, mathematically, it's now guaranteed that nobody else will ever be able to accomplish this feat, because something new got introduced in round 10. Life decay! It sounds like a horrible disease, but it's actually pretty beneficial. The host realized there was an increasing gap between the very best players and everyone else. A couple people had 8 to 10 lives, and the vast majority of people had less than 3, which would inevitably result in boring rounds where nobody was at risk of dying, because all the remaining players had way more than 1 life and couldn't die that round, completely removing suspense and intrigue. So they established life decay. Basically, 2 things changed. First, placing in the top 5% no longer increases your life count, and 2, After results are tabulated and everyone in the bottom 49% loses a life, anyone left with 4 or more lives will lose another life. This means if you have 5 lives and place in the bottom half, you go down to 3 lives. But if you have 5 and place in the top half, you only go down to 4. And even if you prize, you still go down to 4. The prize just got changed to a DRP, or double response prize, which means you can submit 2 responses, and whichever one gets voted higher counts as your real response. This change made it so that the effective new maximum number of lives is 3, and as you can see from the most recent graph, life decay has been very effective. So anyway, let me get to the remaining 3 performances. Round 10. Come up with an alternate use for a food item. I messed up again on this one, but it wasn't a procrastination thing this time. I kinda just missed the mark on the meta. I said popcorn kernels. Heated slowly, sporadic pops keep you awake, replacing coffee. Which I thought was pretty good, because if you're constantly being woken up by loud noises from the popcorn popping randomly, you won't have to buy coffee to keep yourself awake anymore. But I guess making the food's alternate use just the purpose a different food already has didn't sit well with the voters. There's something. 311th place, 62.61% NR. This is, to date, my worst performance in EWOW, percent-wise, and I have since vowed to learn from this mistake and always include some form of key jingling in my response, like a pun or a recognizable proper noun. It has done me well thus far. Round 11. Humanity made contact with aliens, but the aliens abruptly stopped talking. What made them ghost us? I put up, seeing humans eat donuts, Saturnian aliens flee, assuming they're symbolic threats. Which I figured had a chance of flopping due to the complex wording, but it didn't. 27th place, just barely squeaking into the prize zone, 95.66 NR. And round 12, the most recent round as of the creation of this video, as a monster in society, how do you pass off one odd aspect of yourself as normal? And this one had a technical that all of your words had to have an even number of letters to fit with the theme of not seeming odd. Get it? So anyway, that technical was way easier than the robot one. I put up Medusa moonlights as Terracotta Army Museum security. Accidental killings go undetected. And to my absolute delight, I actually placed higher this round than I did in the previous one. 25th place. But unfortunately, because the contestant pool shrinks every round, 25th place no longer qualified for a prize. In the previous round it was the top 30, and in this round it was only the top 22, so I improved my performance but got a worse reward for it. Unlucky 94.68%. Although one dubiously lucky aspect of that performance comes from the pattern it continues. As you may have noticed if you've been paying careful attention, I've prized on every odd-numbered round since the start of the game. This is highly unlikely, given my average score and everything. Even if it were a coin flip with perfectly even odds, the chance that you'd get a pattern of heads, tails, or tails, heads for 12 straight coin flips is 1 in 2048. And this is absolutely not a coin flip. In rounds 12 and 11, I was 2 and 3 ranks away from prizing and not prizing, respectively. If a single voter had voted me a few places lower or higher in either of those, I'd have broken the pattern. It's kind of insane, and I don't expect it to hold up much longer, but it's a cool novelty to say it lasted this long. EWOW paths are notated A for prizes, B for safe, and C for death, so my path has been ah-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, which has become something I just randomly shout to myself when I'm alone or taking a shower or something. But that said, we're now caught up to the current day. You may be wondering about my initial claim that I was in 6th place overall since I never placed 6th in any of those individual rounds. Well, that ranking is actually referring to an aggregate statistic that the EWOW team has been tracking since the start of the competition. If you take everyone's raw score from each round and add them up, I have the 6th highest total out of everyone. On average, I get a score of 73.80% in a round. And you may be thinking, what? That doesn't line up with the numbers you gave throughout the video. And you would be correct about that. The numbers I listed earlier in the video were normalized ranks, which is how well you did compared to other people, with first place at 100% and last place at 0%. But these numbers are raw score, which is just based on votes. So it's a little bit biased toward the earlier rounds, because it was easier to get higher score back then since there were so many awful responses to be better than. But even still, when I flip it to the normalized board, I'm in 14th place, which I think still pretty well qualifies me as a frontrunner out of 406 people. So the title of the video technically isn't clickbait. 6th place just sounded way better than 14th when I was writing the hook. And it's doubly technically true, because in EWOW 5, right after that crazy 3rd place performance, I was 6th place on the normalized ranks board. So, yeah, please don't sue me. Thanks for watching. This is my first attempt at a vlog-style video, and I figured doing well in a big competition like this was as good a reason as any to finally make one. I probably won't make too many follow-up videos, at least not about EWOW, since doing one for every round would be super incremental and kind of pointless. But I'll definitely make a summary video if I die, and probably a recap if I end up making it to, say, the final 50? Let's say I'll make one once I have enough good stories to tell again. But until then, thanks so much for sitting through all my rambling, and I'll see you on the other side. Try not to get your lives decayed. I already am.